well, everybody's a leader. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're, you don't have to be the president of an institution, but all of us are leaders in different ways. You may have kids. If you have kids, you're definitely a leader. You're creating an example for somebody. And so, first of all, I'll walk through these, but visible commitment, you articulate an authentic commitment to diversity, challenge the status quo. If I ever hear somebody tell me one more time that this is the way we've always done it, I will scream. Just because this is the way you've always done it doesn't mean it's right, or it's good, or it's helpful. Hold others accountable and make diversity and inclusion a personal priority. This is what this is about, right? If every single one of us makes it a priority, that's much more powerful than if a president of an institution says, oh, we're going to have Diversity Day today. If everybody makes it their priority, then we're going to see change. And that's the whole reason I wrote this book, because we've had a black president, all this stuff, and yet 2016 still happened, right? Why did this happen? And it's because we aren't taking, I know the vast majority of people, didn't vote a particular way. And yet, this is where we ended up, and it's because we aren't taking personal, think of how many people didn't vote, and didn't want that particular outcome. And imagine if they had actually taken personal responsibility. Imagine if every one of us walked out here today and said, I don't care how you vote, I just want you to vote. Imagine if every one of us stepped out of here today and said, I'm going to do something today that is going to, that shows my personal commitment to inclusion and belonging. Humility. They are modest about capabilities, admit mistakes, and create space for others to contribute. This is really important for leaders, and I use this all the time. You can see I'm very vulnerable. I put my whole life out there. But having humility is important because, and I know I was in a discussion the other day with somebody who came from a background where she said, well, humility, no. But I said, no, it's personal humility. It's understanding that I don't know everything. And I'm always learning. Of course, you go to Stanford. I have to admit that after my first year at Stanford, I thought I knew everything. After my second year at Stanford, I realized I didn't know anything. So humility, I learned it. Awareness of bias. You have to be aware of your own personal blind spots. But again, it comes back to that being able to make mistakes. We all have personal blind spots because we may have not been exposed to something, or we may have, it's just new to us. And, part of the, you hear this whole stuff about cancel culture. It's not really cancel culture. It's just we've lost the ability to give people grace and say, you made a mistake. Do you mind if I correct you? And if that worst person is willing to not be defensive, unfortunately, too often we get defensive and dig in and double down. But if that person is willing to say, oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I did make a mistake. Let me fix it. I just had this experience with it. I did this workshop, and this woman said, well, I have this particular, my grandmother had too much humility, and she got run over. And I'm like, well, that's not what I really meant by it. And I'm sorry if you took that meaning. I have to take responsibility for that, right? I'm not just going to say, oh, you're wrong. It's like, oh, I'm sorry. Next time I talk about humility, I'll give a better definition of it so that you understand what I'm talking about. And so anyway, curiosity about others, demonstrating an open mindset and deep curiosity, listen without judgment, and seek with empathy to understand those around them. Cultural intelligence, I do almost whole lectures on this because especially when I was working, when I was vice provost at UT Austin, I was over study abroad in our international students program. And boy, did I learn about cultural intelligence and cultural humility. And understanding as when you go into a new community or a country you've never been to, you have to be open. That openness is so important, and not being judgmental, and being willing to learn. That's so important. And then finally, effective collaboration, empowering others. The next time you're in a meeting, pay attention to who's not speaking up. Empower somebody. Tell them, hey, I didn't hear from you. Would you be willing to talk? And sometimes people don't feel safe talking in an open meeting. And so I have a rule, if I notice somebody not speaking up, I'll go to them later one-on-one and say, hey, did you have something you would wanted to add to the meeting? And ask them to send you an email, whatever it may be. People don't always feel comfortable speaking in open forums. And so you have to give people different, it's the same thing I do in my classroom. So, this last year, discussion was really important for the class, but I know, certain people tend to dominate discussion and so on. So what I did is, I said, okay, you have 3 different ways. You can speak up in class and ask questions. There's an online form you can go to, or you can just write it up in your weekly summary and send it directly to me so nobody else sees it. And so there were 3 different ways that students had to provide feedback and let me know that they were actually learning something in the course. And so it's important to give different modalities, to give students different opportunities, and that's true wherever you are. People sometimes don't feel comfortable, speaking up or even responding to a survey, and so you have to give people different modes of communication.